Disillusioned and disappointed, I woke up still clutching the bloody knife in my fist. After 14 years of commercial sexual exploitation, my attempt to escape through suicide had failed. But I get ahead of myself. I'm Jenny Sue Jetson. I'm a survivor leader. I'm the founder and CEO of an international counter trafficking organization, and I'm a member of the U.S. Advisory Council on Human Trafficking. But my story really begins at the age of 4, the first time my grandfather sold me to another man for sex. What followed was all the drama and trauma that you might imagine for a child repeatedly being raped for profit. But that's not what I want to focus on. Today, I want to highlight the one thing that I have discovered on my lifelong journey of healing. See, a few weeks before that failed suicide attempt, my grandfather came to me in the dark of night, and once again, he took what he wanted. And after he was finished, he laid out on the bedside table 5 crisp $100 bills. And with that, he proposed a new sort of partnership. You see, what he offered was to pay for university, for my car, for an apartment, for a living allowance every month, if only I would willingly choose to continue to serve his friends. And for the first time in my life, I was offered a choice that tasted like freedom. I wrestled with this offer back and forth because it seemed like I would have autonomy. Finally, I would profit from the sale of my body. I thought, I considered, I wrestled. Ultimately, I declined. But from that experience, a seed of understanding was planted in my soul. And that seed grew to become what I now call the spectrum of empowerment. That is what we're going to focus on today. So join me. Let's dive in. Well, my personal experience sparked the foundation or the concept behind the spectrum of empowerment, this theory that we're going to talk about today. It actually utilizes the knowledge, experience, and expertise of many other survivors of commercial sexual exploitation, as well as that of prostituted persons still actively engaged in commercial sex. It also takes into account the fieldwork of direct service providers that serve both of those populations, spanning 6 countries. So what follows is kind of a macro view, outlining the trajectory of choices an individual may make as they move from childhood victimization and toward empowerment. We know that prostituted persons experience PTSD at rates equivalent to that of combat veterans. Further, up to 95% of prostituted women have a history of childhood sexual assault. 89% of prostituted persons express a desire to escape but see no other viable means of survival. So the individual that has been sexually assaulted or trafficked ultimately faces a choice to accept or to reject the systems in which they were exploited and violated. It is my contention that human beings have an innate ability to heal. Just think with me for a minute. When was the last time you cut your finger or stubbed a toe or even broke a bone? Immediately, your body went to work to heal the injury. It activates the immune system, a stress response, even a pain relief response within the chemical systems of your body. It sent white blood cells to the site of the injury, formed a scab, or began knitting the bone together. All of that happened without your conscious or deliberate thought or choice. Our bodies are designed to heal. I believe it is the same for our mental health. We not only have the innate capacity to heal, but every individual is driven to move toward our highest good. I believe that individuals who have experienced exploitation are not broken, but rather they have the capacity within themselves to, with autonomy, use their internal wisdom and resources to find ways to meet their basic physiological needs: food, shelter, water, and then also for their psychological needs of safety and security. The spectrum of empowerment will outline the choices an individual may make as they pursue empowerment. And what we're going to see is that all of these choices, on some level, make sense. They're reasonable, they're understandable. But we will also see that some choices lead toward greater freedom and a more just world, while others lead to compounding generational cycles of trauma. So, like was the case for me at the age of 17, this choice was laid before me. I could draw a line in the sand and say, no, not ever again. Never, ever, ever will you put a price on my body, on my dignity. Or, and it was really tempting, I considered, what would it look like? What would it feel like for me to be compensated, for me to benefit from being paid for the use of my body, to be compensated for what had always been previously taken by violence? In a very real way, that choice felt like empowerment. I could choose. I could choose the time, the place, the price, I thought. And it would be an empowering choice. Or I could choose, no, this is not the life I want to live. This is not a journey I will continue. Never again. Both choices are moving towards empowerment, and both seem reasonable. Further, for the individual that rejects the commodification of their body, they need to find a sense of community. Chances are, if they've exited exploitation, they have left behind people that they loved dearly and people that they were bonded to through love or through trauma. And so now they need a new sense of community. And these individuals can find community within groups of other individuals that are working towards their healing, their recovery, and pursuing a new future. Alternately, an individual who has decided that entering into commercial sex offers them a glimpse, a taste of empowerment, they also need community. And they might gain this by recruiting other individuals, their friends, their neighbors, their family members, recruiting them to join into commercial sex. And in that, gain a sense of community. Both seeking community, both finding community. The first individual who is finding healing and recovery within safe community might then begin to pursue an education and career goals that will ultimately lead to economic security and status. Alternately, The other individual who recruited their friends into commercial sex may begin profiting off of the exploitation of them. And in that way, they gain a measure of security, safety, and economic status. And so you can think about this in the most basic terms. The drive is the same. The drive to be known, to have value, to have a purpose, to have community, to have economic stability. The drive is the same, but there's two pathways before the individual who has experienced violence. And how will they go about achieving empowerment? You may have ascertained that the spectrum of empowerment is being built on Maslow's theory of the hierarchy of human need. You see, he designed this pyramid and divided it into 5 levels based on our most pressing needs to our highest achievement. And he lays out the premise that it's not until the lower needs are met that we can achieve our highest goals. But it's not only psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors and caseworkers who are familiar with this hierarchy of needs. In fact, traffickers and exploiters use this information to identify vulnerabilities, to meet needs, and then to exploit the person after gaining their trust. There was an article published several years ago by a man named R.J. Martin. And the title of his article was How to Be a Pimp Using Maslow's Hierarchy of Human Need to Make the Most Money. And he goes step by step through this pyramid, first explaining that the basic needs for food and shelter, you're probably not going to find someone in the US that isn't getting these needs met, at least on a somewhat regular basis in America. But at that second level, the need for safety and security, he suggests that a man might be able to find a way in there because a person on the streets is inherently not safe. She's playing a dangerous game. Perhaps from the customers or the buyers, the sex buyers, from unscrupulous police, from intimidators. She faces all kinds of dangers on the street. So at this level, a pimp might be able to say something along the lines of, I want to protect you. And she is hungry, perhaps, to be protected. Although this single thing is likely not enough, this man, R.J. Martin, goes on to explain that it's best to meet needs on several levels at the same time. So not only expressing that I want to protect you, but also convincing her that she's loved, bringing her into a sense of family and community. That is what he says is the easiest way to get started pimping. To make the woman believe that you are in love with her because she is most likely desiring love, and it is a need that is not getting met. You see, the average guy on the street does not see this person as a logical prospect for love or a long-term relationship. Likely her family hasn't loved her well. Maybe she was sexually abused when she was a little girl and then they lied to cover it up. Her only friends may be other men or women that are also being exploited. So R.J. Martin says this is where a good pimp can make a really good living if he's got the right stuff. Because all of these women, and I personally would argue all human beings, are in need of love. So by meeting the needs for safety and security, for love and belonging, there grows this relationship. And in another environment, we might have a long conversation about what trauma bonding is. But at the fourth level, it's important to understand This need for ego and self esteem. Everybody wants to feel good about themselves. And that is a really hard thing for exploited people to do. They want to feel respected. Not, of course, as important as food and water and shelter, but it is a thing that can ruin a person's life if they aren't getting it. Many exploited people have the extra vulnerability of having been abused as children, and perhaps they've been feeling bad for a long, long time. So pimps understand that the pathway before the exploitation, the victimization as a child, offers the exploiter, the trafficker, the pimp, an opportunity to show understanding and sympathy. This builds the person's ego or self esteem. They, they feel seen and known and appreciated. Now, the top of the pyramid is the be all you can be triangle. And it is really hard to for an exploited person to reach this highest level. But many assume that they have reached it when they have recruited other people and now they are in charge of booking the appointments, of handling the profits, of having power over everyone below them. And so not only, again, do counselors understand the hierarchy of need, caseworkers, but traffickers understand the hierarchy of need. My contention is that we are all driven to get these needs met, and we do so in whatever way seems smartest, safest, and healthiest at the time. So, where do these choices lead? That's what we want to explore next. The first road, in which the individual rejects the commodification of their body, builds relationships within a safe community, and works towards their education and career goal, results in a world that is characterized by justice, where individuals cannot be bought and sold, equality, where those once exploited become influential leaders, and generational cycles of empowerment, stability, and prosperity are initiated. The second road, in which the individual entered into commercial sex, they built community by recruiting others, and then ultimately they profited off of the exploitation of their friends, their community. Instead, results in a world in which humans are continued to be commodified, bought, sold, and considered disposable. And generational cycles of trauma and exploitation within marginalized and underserved populations are perpetuated. So, for my visual learners, here's the parallel between the two. The top represents the individual who refuses to ever again be exploited. Their pursuit of building community, their education and career goals laid out and obtained, and a world characterized by justice, equality, and eventually economic stability. The bottom tier represents the individual who entered into commercial sex, recruited others to join them, and ultimately profited off of their exploitation, resulting in a world where exploitation is continually perpetuated. It is my hope that by introducing the spectrum of empowerment to you today, you will begin to see the links between childhood sexual assault, adult victimization, and trafficking. That you will understand how exploited youth move toward empowerment and why they make the choices that they do, and that you will be equipped to safely and compassionately intervene into the lives of trafficked youth. I would like to leave you with these words from one of my favorite poets. As you consider or have the opportunity to interact with people who have been exploited, especially youth, consider these words. Slip off your needs and set them by the door. Enter barefoot this darkened chapel, hallowed by loss, hollowed by sorrow, its gray stone walls and floor. You, congregation of one, are here to listen, not to sing. Kneel in the back pew, make no sound. Let the candles speak. Every person who's been exploited has a story to tell. It is an honor to take off your shoes, to leave your needs at the door, to open your heart and see the light within them, telling a story that needs to be told. The spectrum of empowerment was highlighted in the 2022 annual report from the U.S. Advisory Council on Human Trafficking in the section dedicated to demand reduction. You can use this QR code to download your own copy of the report now. If you would like to explore this topic further, please feel free to take a screenshot of the footnotes of the research that supports the spectrum of empowerment. Thank you so much for taking time to join me in this important conversation. I hope that you picked up one or two valuable insights that will make your work in this battle more effective. Please feel free to comment on the session or to connect with me through the WOVA app. You can also email me at hello@compass31.org. I look forward to fighting alongside of you for a more just world.